Hello everyone, I am Buddha and welcome to the first episode of NoobieCraft, bringing StarCraft to the matches, Hello everyone, I am Buddha and welcome to the first episode of NoobieCraft, bringing StarCraft to the masses. Now this is a show where we are going to explain every aspect of the game as we watch professional players duke it out for fame, glory, and fortune. In this first episode, we're going to bring out two titans of the StarCraft 2 scene, I Am MVP and I Am Nesty. They are playing, this game is a final of a big tournament called the BlizzCon Invitational that happened in October 2011, and the winner of this particular game will actually win $50,000. So it is between I Am MVP and I Am Nesty. And it just goes to say that StarCraft is actually pretty big, $50,000 for a single tournament. There are a huge number of these tournaments every year, so there are many professional players that actually make a living exclusively on playing StarCraft. Now the first thing you need to know about StarCraft is that there are three races: the Terrans, the Zerg, and the Protoss. The Terran is actually showcased right here by I Am MVP. Are the human race. They are human, so if you select an SCV, you can see his face is human, and they will rely on technology that is not too far from what we have today. It is very mechanical. They are obviously more advanced because this takes place in the future, but you will see some humans with mechanical suits. You will see some huge mechanical tanks, some big mechanical units that will be everywhere on the map. The Zerg race is actually a biological race. They are fast evolving and they want to dominate everything. They usually rely on sheer numbers to overwhelm their opponents, which in turn needs a big economy to actually support it. Now the third race is the Protoss. The Protoss unfortunately are not showcased in this match, but they are kind of a futuristic robot race. Maybe not robotic, but definitely futuristic. They have a lot of lasers, they warp in, so teleportation, all those futuristic gimmicks. They are usually a very peaceful race and will only engage in war only if needed. Compared to the Terrans, which will usually have a lot of inner conflict, and the Zerg, who just want to dominate the universe and kill everything. As I said, the Zerg will usually win with sheer numbers, which means that in turn they need a big economy to actually support those that unit production, which is why the Zerg player is getting a second base very fast. This will enable him to actually mine from these mineral patches. And hold that thought, because we already have a rush coming from MVP. A rush is a very fast attack. You can see this bunker will enable MVP to house a couple of Marines and keep them safe. He decides not to finish the bunker, so it is cancelled. So this was just to put a bit of pressure on Nesty, keep him stressed out a bit, just so that he doesn't freely get his economy overwhelming and so that he doesn't easily win the game. This kind of stuff is usually very normal in pro games. They will do these gimmicky things just to keep the pressure on their opponents so they stress out. We have a small engagement here with Marines versus Zerglings, both the base units of their respectful races. The Marines actually cost 1 supply and 50 minerals. Meanwhile, the Zerglings are 50 minerals for 2. So the Zerglings a bit more dispensable than the Marines. 4 Marines gonna poke up here, do whatever damage they can, but this is just, once again, MVP is just applying pressure to Nesty so he doesn't do whatever he wants. Now I was saying that at the base, StarCraft is a game of economy. You need money to produce everything in this game. This is achieved by mining minerals such as these blue crystals here, and gas such as Vespene gas. You can see there is an extractor here that enables the Zerg player to actually mine gas. Now with these minerals you can produce units such as Zerglings and Marines, and with these you can actually attack the opponent player. This Spinecrawler is a static defense produced from a drone which will repel any kind of early any kind of early aggression from the Terran player. If you notice carefully, these Zerglings have actually transformed since the beginning of the game and now have small wings on their back. This is an upgrade called Metabolic Boost, referred to usually as Zergling Speed, which enables the Zerglings to actually walk a lot faster across the map. You can see that these lings, once they move, they will be a lot faster. A very common upgrade to see in these games. Almost every game the Zerg player will get Zergling Speed. Now the Terran player is once again harassing. He is putting the pressure on with these Hellions. Hellions are light units. They are kind of rovers with flamethrowers on their back and very good against light unit. You can see they do 8 damage versus light 14, and Zerglings are actually light unit. In addition to this, Hellions have what we call splash damage or area of effect damage. This means that they can target not only a single unit, but if there are units close by to their target, their attack will actually hit more than one unit. For example, if a Hellion were to attack this Zergling from this angle, he will hit about almost every Zergling that is here, which makes him very effective against large amounts of Zerglings. Zerglings are very weak. They only have 35 health, which makes them very, very vulnerable to these Hellions. Now this is just a bit more of harassment. You can see this queen almost died, but these professional players are so good that they will save every single unit that they can. You can see saving a queen with only 13, 14 health because Zerg units slowly regenerate health over time. Now there is a second number underneath the health, and that is energy. Energy is a resource attributed to a single unit, so you can see that these two queens have separate energy levels. Energy will actually enable units to use spells such as spawn larva that you just seen here. You can see 4 eggs on this hatchery will eventually transform into larvae. Spellcasters, as I said, regenerate energy at the rate of 1 energy per second and will enable a very wide range of spells that will come back to later. Larva, as I mentioned, will enable the Zerg to produce units. Every Zerg unit, an exception for the queen, will be produced from a larva. This little thing right here. You can see they transform into eggs, and from these eggs will produce more units. Now the Terran player still has a contain on the Zerg player, meaning that the Zerg can't actually walk out of his base, because if he does, he will die to these Hellions. Now the Zerg has a big force massing up, and now he decides it is enough. He wants to walk out of his base and get a third base as soon as he can, because, like I said earlier, the Zerg will usually want a better economy than his opponent, and you can see that the Terran player already has a second base. Now this line of defense for the Terran player is very common. These units are what we call siege tanks. They have a mode that they are in right now, siege mode, meaning that they can't move when they are in this mode. They can only stay where they are. They can unsiege and return to tank mode, but while they are in this mode, they do huge damage to any ground unit, as well as area of effect damage. Now these units are Mutalisks. They are very fast flying units, and the advantage of Mutalisks is that you can actually poke inside the main Terran base, deal damage, and leave without getting damaged yourself. These Mutalisks are not usually good in a big engagement. You really want to avoid fighting with these. You just want to harass. For example, these Mutalisks are going to come up here. They will deal whatever damage they can and then leave. So they poked up here, they saw that they could not deal any damage because there were Marines in position, and they just decided to leave. Now, as I said, there are 2 resources associated in this game. One is minerals, these blue crystal. The other is Vespene gas, these green gas things. Now the gas is usually used to tech up. And what this means is getting new technologies further as you go on further in the game. Technologies will enable you to build bigger and better units. For example, these Mutalisks can only be built if you have the Spire technology. This is a building called the Spire that you can see right here. Once you have this building, their larvae gain the ability to actually mutate in a Mutalisk for 100 gas, 100 minerals, and 2 supply. Now, supply. I've mentioned supply before, and I will finally explain what that is. Supply is this number you see at the top right corner of your screen. You can see that Zerg is 146 on 146 supply, and the Terran player has 145 on 177 supply. Basically, supply is like food. You need supply to be able to support your army. So if you don't have enough supply, you cannot build units. How do you gain supply? For the Terran player, you build these supply depots, which when you build, they are on top of the ground and gain the ability to also burrow underground like this. What that usually means is that the Terran player will build supply depots at the front of his base, preventing any units from walking in or out, and when he's ready to take his second base, we'll just lower the supply depots, enabling units like this store to just walk across them. This provides a first line of defense for the Terran player, as he has the ability to actually repair buildings. So if the Zerg player wants to swarm inside the main Terran base, the Terran player will just repair these supply depots and block off the Zerg threat until he has enough units to hold it off. Now, we have seen a Thor. Thors are very large, armored, massive units that deal big damage. You can see a Thor hammer deals 30 damage and attacks 2. This means every time it attacks twice for 30 damage and has a lot of health. Meanwhile, the Zerg has what we call creep. Creep is this purple stuff you see on the minimap. The minimap is basically an overview of the map, and Zerg buildings can only be built on creep. You can see these spine crawlers, these little shadows, mean that the Zerg actually is planning on building a building there. As you can see, these drones have morphed into spine crawlers, which in 50 seconds will become a full-grown spine crawlers like you see here. Returning to the actual game, you can see that the Zerg player is actually poking inside the main base with the Mutalisk, like we said, and is trying to avoid these Marines because they really don't want to fight them. Because we know that Mutalisks are fairly weak, and they are very fast, so if you poke in, deal damage, get out, it is very beneficial for you, and if you save all the Mutalisks, you can do it again and again and again. And if you hurt your opponent's economy, like killing these SCVs, which are workers that gather minerals, like an ST is doing right now, this prevents, or at least it cripples the Terran player's capability of producing units. So by killing SCVs like this, the Terran player might not have enough money to produce out of all his producing structures. Now, this defensive position for the Terran player is actually very something we see almost every game. These siege tanks have huge range. You can see the range is the small white dots. So these siege tanks can actually shoot up to here, and they are spread out so that banelings, we will come back to banelings later, can't deal enough damage to them significantly. And you can see all of these tanks were actually hitting banelings and lings and killing everything in one shot. This makes the siege tanks very effective at defending, and you don't usually want to engage a line of siege tanks like this. What a Zerg player will usually do is wait for the siege tank to return to siege mode, where they are very less effective, like this tank right here. He is in tank mode, he is in siege mode. You can see there is a clear difference there. Now, banelings are these little round balls of acid. These actually morph from Zerglings, and their main attack is a suicide. So they just crash into a unit, dealing damage to them, and they have an area of effect damage attack. What this means is when they crash into a unit, a small area around them will actually be affected by the damage dealt. For example, what this means is that if a baneling were to crash on this Marine, the area of effect damage of that baneling will actually hit almost all Marines here. which means 2 banelings. Banelings which do 24 damage and 43 damage to light units, which these Marines are, will actually kill a Marine in 2 shots. That means if 2 banelings actually hit this single Marine, the damage will be dealt across all Marines and they will all die, which makes banelings very, very effective against Marines. Which is a good thing for Zerg because the Marines are usually the backbone of a Terran army. Now you can see that Terran has taken a 3rd and 4th base. This planetary fortress morphs from the main building of the Terran, a command center, and is very, very good for defending. Now this is a small harassment technique we see from Terrans time and time again. There are what we call drops. These medevacs serve a double purpose. They can actually, we will watch this drop, they serve a double purpose. They can actually act as transports, so they transport Marines into the main base, and they also heal biological units. These Marines are biological, so they can be healed by these medevacs. You can see that all Marines were healed until they were destroyed by these banelings, and now you can see how effective banelings are against Marines. And once this medevac has served its purpose, it will just go back home, and you can see another drop is happening inside the main Zerg base, and this is very annoying to deal with. But during this time, the Zerg player has actually attacked the 4th base of the Terran player. You can see this 4th base has been erased, and this happened using Broodlords. Broodlords are a very high cost unit. They're very expensive, and they usually come late inside the game. And you don't usually want to lose your Broodlords because, as I said, they're very expensive, but they're also very good. You can see the Zerg unfortunately will lose almost all Broodlords. He will lose all Broodlords to the Ghosts. Ghosts are another spell casting units. We will come back to Ghosts because they are kind of tricky to explain. Suffice to say that they are good against big units until very recently. They are a very versatile unit actually that you usually see in the late game. So if you look at the general state of the minimap, you can see that the Zerg player is trying to expand everywhere. He has a base here, 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 and here, and building one at the lower corner, lower side of the map. So that puts him up to actually 7 bases compared to only 4 for the Terran player. But like we said, the Zerg player likes to swarm at the opponent, likes to overwhelm him with units, which well, requires a bigger economy, but also he can sacrifice a lot more units. Now we are approaching a state in the game where the 2 players are actually maxed out. What this means is that both players actually have almost 200 supply, which is the maximum amount of supply in a game allowed. Some units cost more supply than others. For example, these tanks cost, how many supply? I forgot. 3 supply per tanks, and these Marines only cost 1 supply. These Mulists actually cost 2 supply apiece. So once you reach 200, this means that you cannot build any more units. And I will come back to that. We will just watch a small drop being taken care of. This is another advantage of the Mutalisks. They are very fast, so once a drop happens, you can deal with it very easily. This Marine, you might wonder why he walked up here. The player I am MVP just wants to see what's going on. Because if you look at the first-person view of a player, he can't actually see what's happening here. He sees these spine crawlers simply because that is what he saw when he was here. But once there's nothing here, these spine crawlers can move around and he would not know about it. So obviously a player will only see where his units are. He cannot see the opponent base, which adds a lot of deception to the game of StarCraft, because you can fake stuff. You don't necessarily have all the information that you would want. Sorry. Sorry about that. And you can add a lot of deception to this game, as I said. And it is a game of incomplete information, so the best strategies should be strategies that work against everything. Now, we talked about supply earlier. The way that Zerg can gain supply so this second number, is actually by producing overlords. These overlords are very slow flying units, but they are usually used to span out across the map to give the Zerg player vision. So if a drop happens next to this overlord, the Zerg player Nest-T will actually know that it is happening and can react faster to this drop. And StarCraft is really a game of seconds. The faster you know about something, the better it is, and by far. Now this Thor is going to be taken out, or try to be taken out by these Mutas, but the Mutalisks are chased back, and meanwhile a few Marines just want to see what is going on up here. And you can see that Nest-T has a lot of Banelings. These Banelings only have 30 health, so they will die to the 38 damage from the siege tanks. And remember that siege tanks, as we said, have area of effect damage. This means that once they hit a target, they will hit a number of targets that are surrounding the initial one. So if he hits this Baneling, all the Banelings around it will actually also die. You can see that MVP, being the professional player that he is, can actually drop a lot and do many actions at the same time. So dropping multiple places at once, you can see 2 dropships are coming here, while attacking, while producing units at the same time, is something that a professional player will be very good at. And this drop will be cleaned up by the Mutalisks, or barely. You can see 4 Marines will be able to kill the Mutalisks, and this is what I was talking about. The Mutalisks aren't usually good for fighting head-on. Zerg player is finally attacking. He's trying to pick off this base. He barely doesn't get it. You can see this base has 100 health left, and burning Terran buildings will actually burn down until they are repaired. You can see these SCVs are desperately trying to repair this building, and the command center will be saved, which is actually a big deal in these very high level games. These Vikings that are flying units that can also turn into an assault mode, which basically lands them on the ground but prevents them at that moment from attacking air units. They have the choice of being in the flying mode or assault mode. When on the ground, they can only target ground units. When in the air, they can only target air units. We don't usually see them on the ground, and when they are in the air against Zerg is usually to take care of these big Broodlords unit that we actually saw earlier. Another big unit for Zerg are these Ultralisks. You can see they're big, they're massive, they have 500 health, which is huge. They have area of effect damage. Meanwhile, a small drop. You can see this MVP is actually controlling so well. You can see he picks up all the units right when he's about to get attacked, and these players are very good. Like we mentioned earlier in this game, they are very good at saving every tiny bit of unit. Meanwhile, he's dropping another base up here. He is just everywhere, and this is so hard for Nest-T to actually deal with. If you ever played StarCraft, you know how hard this is to deal with. Meanwhile, these Infestors will actually be able to deal with this drop. Infestors are a spellcasting unit. They have this spell called Fungal Growth, which demands 75 energy. You can see what happens. Fungal Growth will put a fungus on units, and that deals damage over time, and also prevents units from actually moving. We might see another Fungal Growth on this medevac. No, we saw Fungal Growth right here. So see, everything underneath the spell is affected by it, and these Marines took a lot of damage from the Fungal Growth, which enables the Spine Crawlers to actually finish him off. But he is being healed by the medevac. Now you're probably wondering why these players weren't controlling these units better. It's because they are very occupied at doing other stuff, for example, defending the center of the base. StarCraft is a game where positioning will be very important, and the Terran player has a great position at the center of the map. If he keeps this position locked down, the Zerg player it's generally not a good idea to actually attack into a position like this, simply because the Terran player will have units that are sieged up, very hard to break. You can see a Fungal Growth will go down right here. There you go. That is the effect of Fungal Growth. You can see all these Marines will be dying. because of that damage over time. Meanwhile, there was another drop down here that didn't do too much damage because the queens were here to intercept. And as I said, this sieged position by the Terran player is very, very hard to break for the Zerg. So the Zerg will have to find a way to actually deal with this siege position. Which brings me to winning conditions. How do you win a match of StarCraft? There are two ways to actually win a match. Hold that thought, we have a nuclear bomb going down. These nukes are sent from the ghost, and if it lands, it will actually kill a lot of stuff right here. And there it goes, killing a lot of workers. And you can just see the power of the nuke. Unfortunately, the nuke is very slow to produce. You need to lock down on a single target for quite some time for the nuke to actually land. I was saying, yeah, how do you win a match of StarCraft? You win there are two ways to win a match of StarCraft. The first one is to kill every single opponent building. So every hatchery, every spine crawler, every extractor. Units don't count, so you can still have drones, Zerglings, Mutalisks, and everything like that on the map. But if you don't have any more units, you will lose the game. A second way of winning, which is usually the one that happens, is if the player actually surrenders. When a player surrenders, you will usually see him type out GG, which stands for good game. It's the polite way of surrendering, and then when the player leaves, the opponent player will actually win the game. A big indication of who is winning will actually be by supply. You can see that MVP has 188 over 126 supply of his opponent, which means that he has about 60 supply worth more of units. 60 more supplies worth of units. This obviously translates to either more SCVs mining minerals and gas for a better economy, or simply more attacking units for a better army. So that is generally a good indication that MVP is ahead. In a normal game, the Zerg will usually have more supply than the opponents. Unfortunately, in this case, MVP has more supply, which means that he's just that much more further ahead. Now, we said that these overlords provided food for the Zerg player. They also serve another purpose. Once you get to Lair Tech, which is the second tier of technologies for the Zerg, you can research the abilities for these overlords to actually move faster and also transport units. So these overlords all have the ability to transport units. And you see that these overlords will try transporting units inside the main base, or the fourth base, I should say, of MVP. And that sound that you heard earlier, the is actually a nuke going down. Terran player will see this big spot, but the Zerg player only sees a tiny red dot, and that was another successful nuke. And you can hear there's another nuke going down right here. So if you look at the Zerg's player's view, he only sees this small dot. So he actually needs to spot this dot to know that the nuke is coming there. Now, these nukes are hard to spot for another reason, is that the Ghost actually has an ability called Cloak. Cloak will make these ghosts invisible unless there is detection nearby. For example, these missile turrets are detectors, so they can see invisible units. So is, for example, the Spore Crawler, which is a defensive structure that only hits air. And that pretty much sums it up from what I wanted to cover in this first edition of NoobieCraft. Hopefully you enjoyed this game, and it is almost over. I mean, MVP and SD, we saw some small battles, we saw some large battles. They have fought courageously, and this is one huge Broodlord army by Nesty. Expect this army against the main Terran army to be that last battle, and whoever wins that one will actually usually win the game. There are nukes going down somewhere on the map. In the center right here, you can see this cloaked ghost. We'll try and pick off some spine crawlers. And once this main battle actually happens, one player will have to tap out GG and leave the game, surrender the game, and concede victory to the opponent. You see, Nesty is going to try and attack into this sieged Terran position. but it is so hard to attack into. But with similar supplies, both players are almost maxed. This could go either way, and we will look at this huge engagement right now of a lot of broodlords that actually shoot broodlings, these Vikings that can shoot the broodlords, ultras walking in here, killing everything that they can, and after this huge engagement, you can see the supporting ghosts are trying to snipe everything. Snipe is an ability that does huge damage to biological targets. And these broodlords are just walking across everything. They cannot see these ghosts because the ghosts are cloaked. And now Nesty has actually lost almost all his units. You can see the supply was 82 to 154, and Nesty GG's out of there. The Terran player was just so much more cost efficient. He lost a lot less in that engagement because he had the positioning. Meanwhile, he was dropping the main at the same time, and MVP, after winning this game, has actually won $50,000 for this game. And as I said, we covered a lot in this game. Hopefully you enjoyed this NoobieCraft, and we will be doing more segments, covering more stuff. I will try and divide these NoobieCraft casts into 3 sections. Introduction, Novice, and Intermediate. In the introductions, we will be doing what we did today, explaining all the units, explaining what economy is, what supply is, and all that. The further we move up, say Novice or Intermediate, we might actually get into some positioning and what some spells can do, some basic techniques, but we won't go into advanced gameplay. We won't try and follow everything that's going on. We will try and keep this entertaining for all you newbies that are trying to learn StarCraft, the best game in the world. And thanks for watching, and see you next time, guys. Hopefully you enjoy these casts.